Hi, it's Dr. Doni, and I'm excited to introduce you to Britta Aragon today. She is a master purpose and vision coach, helping people to transform their lives. Thank you so much for joining me today, Britta.
I'm so happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
Oh, yes, of course. And I think this is so exciting what you do, helping people to really see what could be different in their lives and how to make those changes that sometimes are difficult to imagine. And I know you do this because you figured it out yourself. So share with us a little more like about you and how you found yourself coaching people in this way.
Mm. Well, I always say, and I'm sure it was the same for you, Dr. Donnie, but I always say that your calling finds you, like whenever there's someone that's really, what's my purpose? What's my purpose? Sometimes it's actually right under their experience and their pain or their nose, right underneath there. It's like it's happening. And it's a calling. I think it's a calling of how I got here. I never set out to, I'm going to be a purpose and vision coach, and that was not my thing. But one of the things I think the gift that I've had that I've known for a very long time is the gift of visioning. I knew I was going to write a book in my 20s. I knew I was going to have a skincare line in my 20s. I knew I was going to work with Dr. Aragon in my 20s. I knew I was going to be somehow connected to Damon John in my life. And all those things came about. I didn't know what the skincare line was about. I didn't know what the book was going to be about. I didn't know why Dr. Aragon. I mean, I figured it had to do around beauty because that's the industry he's in. But Damon John ended up doing my PR for my skincare line, and that was my former career. So I think the skill of visioning and knowing that I'm a visionary and I can see that for myself, and I so easily can see that for other people. And I think the gift is in that I'm really good at holding space and believing that this can happen for you. And then it's a matter of just removing the obstacles, what's getting in the way, and really allowing you to lean into the skill of thinking big and taking risks and all of that. That all is my passion because I did it myself. And I think the last piece I'll share on this, how I came to do this, is when I did sell the brand, and then it just became unfolding of events that led me to, well, you already teach about toxins and carcinogens and how to live a life safely without food toxins in the environment, in your home, in your personal care products and food. So I started to go into, well, fear is a toxin. It's a behavior that produces inflammatory responses, or it's not a behavior, it's a frequency. We can look at it many ways. And so I started to say, this is what I'm going to do. But first, I'm going to experience this myself. So I left New York City, and I knew you by this time, and way before that, actually. This was about 5-6 years ago now. And I took myself on. I had a vision that I was going to travel the world, and I was going to start this coaching company called Detox Your Life. And I was going to focus on helping people detox on a physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual level. And I just put on blinders, and I just had one narrative, and that's the narrative of trusting life. And every time fear would pop up, I would be tested in, what are you going to choose? Are you going to choose what you heard in meditation and prayer and what you know that you were told that you get to do? Or are you going to trust my ex-husband and the product developer and my mom going, what are you doing? Like, what do you mean you're traveling the world and you're starting a company? Like, what does this mean? Like, who does that? And I'm like, I don't know, but I'm being asked to do it, and I'm going to trust it for right now. And that I think gave me so much firsthand experience of like, oh my God, like I didn't know what this looked like. I didn't know what I was truly teaching. I was just studying the Course in Miracles at that time. And I was just continuing to follow the guidance. The 3 days before I left Ibiza, my mom's like, where are you going next? And I said, I don't know. I haven't sat in meditation. And she goes, what do you mean? Like, Britta, where are you going? It's 3 days. And I was like, I don't know. I don't know where I'm being led to go. And sure enough, I was led to go to the south of France, but that's how I was living, in full trust and vision and purpose.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's how this kind of came about, of as far as vision and purpose and risk taker, and having this crazy faith to do things that my intellect and my ego would have never thought that that's what you get to do. So that's kind of how it came about this today.
Well, and I wonder if because I know you also survived cancer.
Mm-hmm.
And I really, because I sometimes see this in people who've kind of met their life and death in the face, so to speak. You know, you're like, okay, we're facing a life-threatening cancer, and you did it. You survived it. You survived Hodgkin lymphoma. And, you know, just going through that, I wonder do you think that made you more sort of like willing to just go for it? You know?
Great. Yeah. And thanks for bringing that up. I mean, that was, again, part of why I started CV Skin Labs. It was because I lost my father to cancer 9 years after my own experience. And I was really moved by his experience of not being able to find products. He was so uncomfortable at home with all the side effects, and that impacted me. And I said, oh my God, I want to do a skincare line. Like, I'm going to do that. So, but the experience itself for myself, I think it was two things. So if we're going to I love, this is about how humans heal, right? This is all about that. And I think for me, I was 16 years old, and yes, it was a diagnosis, and twofold. The first part, I was a teenager, and you have a daughter. You understood what the teenage years. You were one. You know, we're ignorant to some degree, or to a big degree.
Well, maybe you weren't even as aware of the risks
at all. And I wrote this in my book. I wrote, you know, for me, when I had cancer, ignorance was bliss, because it allowed me to not be invested in the narrative of, oh my God, at that time, which was almost I'm 46 today, it was 16, like 30 years plus, you know, ago, or less than that. But still, back then, Hodgkin's lymphoma, it was still considered like, oh, you know, I had the best out of non-Hodgkin's and Hodgkin's, but it was still considered like, well, we don't know why people get it. It's not hereditary, really. You know, it was a misunderstood, and the drugs that were being used, the chemotherapy, you know, nitrogen mustard was used back in the day, like all of that. There was a lot of uncertainty for my parents. And that was the first one out of this big Mexican family to ever have cancer. Like, nobody in my family had ever had a history of cancer. So it was a big shock. But I'm 16. All I want to do is go feel well so I can go play with my friends. And that was my first experience of, wow, the cells listen. Because I was supposed to have 12 months of chemo and some radiation. I ended up having 4 months of chemo. And the beautiful illustration about this, Dr. Doni, is that there was another, I was playing volleyball, and I was playing for the senior team, and I was so into it. I was good at it. And I had another competitor from a different high school also was diagnosed with Hodgkin's lymphoma around the same time as I was. She was the same age. So our mother, and we were in the same city. So our mothers started talking. We had the same oncologist. And take two people, the same cancer, of course, two different bodies, two different backgrounds, genetics, the whole bit. But we were being treated with a very similar cocktail. And 4 months, my doctor's like, I can't believe it. I don't understand. You're doing amazing, and you're in remission. And she kept going for a year, and I think she needed some radiation. And so to me, that was the beginning of learning through experience how to heal.
Now,
ignorance, but at the same time is I get to choose again. There is a lot of experience. There's a lot of loss right now. A lot of people have gone through loss, whether it's their jobs, identities, right? What they had, who they, people have lost a lot of people. There's been a lot of death, but we get to choose how we experience what we're experiencing. And most of the time, I think we can't heal because the narratives that we choose are the loops, the traumas that we keep on investing in and choosing. And until you're aware of what narrative, who is choosing this? Is this the wounded little boy or little girl? Or is this my higher self? And that, so to me, that higher self, that ignorance, I wasn't trained to be afraid yet at 16 so much, right? So by the world.
It was just automatic for you to go into that way of being.
Totally. So that was an incredible experience. And I think, to answer your question, that did give me a lot of life is now. And, like, I'm like, I come from a family that's very well educated. I'm like, forget college. It's all about traveling and living. And my dad's like, no, it's not. And I was like, well, it is at the moment. So of course I went back to college at 22, but I had to have that moment of like, life is now. And there was this urgency that came. But the flip side to this is that there was a wreckage that happens on a physical level. And then there's a wreckage that happens on a mental and emotional level. And I think that the mental and emotional was not addressed. I didn't go to a support group with other kids. I had lost my hair and I was wearing wigs, and that was okay. But then there was a trauma that was never healed, which led to addictive patterns that just showed up after I went into remission from cancer. Like, I never used to have issues with eating, but it came up right after, or drinking. And so I got two very incredible, paths from both that experience. And so, of course, much later when I was ready for it, and still today, there's some residue that comes up around that trauma. It's to just bring it forward. And I always say that healing happens in priority order. I don't need to go seek to heal something that I think happened, or, well, let me just go back to back in when I was 20 and I want to heal that now. No. It'll show up for you when it's ready, if you even need to go and look at it. And so, so that experience, of course, it shaped everything, but it did give me a lot of this wanting to live a big life and savor life and live big. But at the same time, I really have to tune into my human and my body and my energy management and the balance and the harmony and that enough, okay, that's enough. Where before it was all about just wanting to live and in the moment. And so that experience has really brought a lot of experience of what I call on today to coach and on my retreats and everything that I'm up to.
It makes sense. And I think those life experiences, it's taught you so much, but it allows you to relate to a lot of other people and what they're going through, to be able to relate to these big, challenges of life, having a business, selling a business, writing a book, and going through a major health issue and being a support to a family member who has a major health issue. I mean, just thinking of all the different challenges you've already shared with us that other people go through. And Mel, when you coach other people, do you find that you're coaching them around their business or around their personal life, or both?
It's both. People come to me with both. I have people that they want to, start a supplement line, and it's more, okay, let me help you with the vision plan. That's a big thing. It's like vision plan, and there's a business plan and a vision plan. And we start off with a vision plan. So there's that. There's people that I really support in their leaving one career, and now they want to write a book or they want to start their own business. But mainly and whether it's their personal life, that they're getting ready to leave a marriage, that they're so scared, or they're getting ready to take a leap of faith they've never think they could do. It's always about mindset and about where's your trust? What are you trusting on? Who's running this? And are you really focused on external power? Are you anchored on external power? And it's really about the journey from the external power to internal power that I think I'm really known for. It's how do you, when you take away all the identities, all the things that you thought defined you, kind of like, you know, in the Bible, when you're in the wilderness, when you're really raw, naked, like, can you stand there and be with your worth and know who you are and whose you are? And that you're in this internal power and you have a guidance system that's always giving you all the steps for your personal plan. And so I really support people, whether it's in business or in a personal life, how do they tune in to this listening and this stillness to download a business idea, a book, a whole life, what's next? And I really teach about that, how to really listen to the whispers of the soul and how to quiet down that voice of the ego and fear. And once you have trained your mind to listen to that voice in your devotion time, then when it comes to making big decisions on a business level,
so much easier.
You know how to hear the voice, you know what doesn't feel right. And a quick example about this was when I was running CV Skin Labs and we had a CFO that we sort of hired someone to come in and something didn't feel right. Everything looked good on paper. Everyone, agreed, like the team was like, no, he's great. And intuitively, I was like, something's off. And I don't think that this is what I need to do. And so here I am consulting the team, but I'm getting some consulting people that are also experts or they've got experience, but my own inner voice, my own inner authority, that higher self, that connection to source is saying no. And so I ended up walking into a boardroom to fire somebody that's well-known that was working for us with 13 people. And how funny that day, no one could come with me, no one from my team. So it was me, myself, and that connection to that internal power, doing what the world probably said, what are you doing? Why would you? Everything looks good. And so it's about relying and coming to really know what your gut is telling you. And I remember asking Kevin O'Leary from Shark Tank. I wasn't on Shark Tank, but I remember I've met him and I asked him, what's the best business advice that you could ever give me? And he says, never defy your gut instinct.
Yes.
And so here's an investor, right? He invests in people and they take a chance on their gut as well. Sometimes it doesn't sound right. So I think that when you have access to that voice, you know how to dialogue with it and how to get your needs met through that, you are the most powerful person in the room.
No, I think that's really true. And I see that to get there this is from my experience, but what I'm hearing from you is we need to some degree, kind of process anything that's blocking us from having access to that, whether that's past experiences or traumas or different things that kind of come in the way, like you mentioned, ego in some way, and then be able to practice some of these techniques. And you mentioned some, but let's touch on them again in case someone is intrigued, or if maybe they're curious to start. One would be meditation, right? Or something similar to meditation, like it could be mindfulness practice, or I would really consider prayer in some way similar, because it's that same realm of like you said, creating time for yourself to be with yourself and be comfortable in that, what comes to you in those quiet moments. But tell me more how you explain that, how you talk to people about those practices that can help us get in connection with our intuition.
Yeah. Well, one thing you said, I think is key for everybody listening to two things. The first one is you said you need to remove all the traumas or the blocks or the belief systems. And that's true because that becomes ego, edge got out, right? Like when you don't have, when there's no room for that medicinal grace to come in and heal, that light, whatever you want to call it, that universal intelligence, the light, that grace, that love from spirit, from the universe. When we are blocked with resentment and shame and guilt and regret and fear, that healing tonic, that's what I really call the vaccine, is this love energy, this light that can't access you. So it's not like you're a bad person or you've been left out. It's just you're blocked. Mm-hmm. So you're blocked. So that's really the first thing. The second thing, based on what you said too, is how do humans heal? Well, first of all, we need to know ourselves. Mm-hmm. In order to heal, we need to know who we are and who we are not. But we have practiced for many years thinking we are. Mm-hmm. So we have to start knowing who we are, what we're not, and seeing ourselves from a different vision. Mm-hmm. So you mentioned prayer. For me, prayer is huge because prayer moves you from that lower part of the brain, that fear-based brain, and something happens in this transactional ritual of prayer where you shift to that higher part of the brain that's connected to this universal intelligence. So what you have access to, once again, once you've shifted in that higher part of the brain, is now all of these ideas, all of these new perceptions, all of these new ways to look at that same situation. But when I'm in fear, I have one way to look at it, and that's panic. I'm not safe. There's not enough. Whatever comes with that, the effects of that. And you teach about this, the effects of fear and stress in the body can be catastrophic over long term. And, you and I have done some work around all that as well, because as a New Yorker too, it's like this whole, you do so much, and then the body, all those stress hormones, et cetera. But so prayer, yes, what happens is you're infusing a different power to your situation when you bring the situation to prayer. And when my dad first passed away, that's who I used to pray to, my dad. I just have a hunch that he's in a different realm, in a place where there's access to information, where he's seeing them with the right glasses, where I'm seeing it with the wrong ones. And I get a perception, I get this different vantage point to look at a situation. Mm-hmm. So it allows me to shift. So prayer for sure. Mm-hmm. I used to pray morning and evening. Now I pray all day long. And I specifically pray around using the Course in Miracles. So that's probably the second thing I would recommend for someone that wants to heal or get to know who they are or remove the blocks. The Course in Miracles is a mind training. And that course tells us that an untrained mind can accomplish nothing. Mm-hmm. And that's true. We all see, like, we may have success for a moment, but then it comes back to the same thing. Or we have this great relationship, then we end up in the same place. And it's because if you're not trained to focus on this spiritual vision, this place of trust that life is here for me, that I am supported, then that fear thought system, you will not accomplish anything that's truly sustainable, authentic, and from your truth. So it's a mind training system that it's a book, it's $45. You can get it on Amazon. It arrives at your house, and you do one lesson a day. And because it's active, it's got so much truth in it that what it does just by doing the lessons is it activates, it helps you remember what you have forgotten about who you are.
I love that.
So that's another thing. And I do a lot of teachings around that. And third, meditation. I couldn't agree more with you. Meditation, and it may take time, and whether it's 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 30 minutes, I do 30 minutes every morning. And it's, stillness. When you're in stillness, ego can't survive. Like, it's almost like scripture, be still and know that I am God, but be still, because in the stillness, there's no chatter. So you're left with truth. There may be chatter, but you just observe it, and eventually the chatter will start to calm down. But you are in this presence of truth when you're in stillness. And then the fourth, I'll add one more. I teach this quite a bit. It's called listening sessions. And I tell you, I have a really high profile client that's making big moves with big money in New York City, Wall Street. And she goes into listening sessions. And another client that's in London, and it's like, what do I do about this? What do I do about this other thing? Or the company wants to be acquired, goes into listening sessions. And listening is this two-way prayer, if you will, but I use it based on the Course in Miracles. It's how do you hear the voice? So it's a skill. I'm teaching a skill of how do you get to internal power? Well, first you have to know the quality of that higher self, that voice. And then you have to have this practice and the skill of listening. And then are you confused about what you heard? And so there's process, it's some steps, and then it's a practice. And then I often hear, when I don't do it, my clients say, I feel lost. And it's like, yeah, because you're starting to rely on your mind again, on your finite self, on what the neighbor's telling you, your husband or wife is telling you, the news is telling you. And those are all these different voices. And we want to start training ourselves to listen to our own voice. And then the healing path will show. Like, I need a naturopath. Okay, who? Oh, doctor, it's all, the prescription will come. So that is a prescription to learn how to trust yourself again and trust your power. And that's sovereignty, where you now have a process that you can go into your bedroom or meditation pillow or the balcony or the pool or your backyard, whatever, wherever, by the way, and it's free, and pick up the phone and dial in and get your answers.
Wow, that's powerful.
Something a lot of people don't know is that too much stress can actually create an abundance of health problems like high blood pressure, high blood sugar, anxiety, migraines, insomnia, even fertility issues. This is because high stress puts your adrenal glands on overload. They release cortisol and adrenaline, which controls your digestion, hormones, immune system, energy, focus, and even your emotional response. So how can you beat stress when you don't know where to start? That's why we have a free 7-day stress reset program. It's designed to help support weight loss, digestive healing, and hormone balancing. It includes support for integrating self-care, daily tips come to you by email and video, gluten-free, dairy-free meal plans, as well as grocery shopping lists, journal pages, and more. This free program will help you beat stress and put you on the path to wholeness in your body. Get your plan now for free at drdoni.com.
And I love how you're really distinguishing this knowing of self, because I really think that so much of the time as humans, we get caught up in our roles, either as a partner, a wife, a husband, or our job title, or all the things we have to do each day on our to-do list, and the days go by so quickly, and we lose track of ourselves, and it's like, and plus there's other reasons too, right? Like, I think even in the medical system, it's, for example, it has all these specialties, so we've kind of like separated ourselves into, it seems like we're separated from our bodies, and our bodies have all separate parts, but really we're not. We have these fully integrated mind, body, and spirit, and we're we need to connect with our own body, mind, and spirit instead of all this focus on the outside, right? We're so easily distracted with, basically flashing lights and different things going on, media, TV, and to-do lists, and right. And we lose track of who am I really? What is this body I'm living in? And who am I living in this body? And to figure that out, you have to kind of find a way to stop for a minute. Yeah. Because I think if we keep running on this treadmill, we lose track of the fact that we could just get off the treadmill and kind of go, who am I? What do you find with that? Do you find that people kind of, because I think sometimes illness does that to us when we have illness.
You took it out of my mouth. Yeah.
It kind of forces us to stop. But what if a person wants to stop before they get ill?
Well, as humans, I think we're very defiant. And I think that, yes, when you were speaking, the first thing that came to me is, and if you don't stop, life will stop you. So, life gets ready to say, okay, Bree is ready to learn this lesson. She's not paying attention. She's on the marathon. And that happened to me a year ago, exactly, on October 20th, where I ruptured my Achilles tendon. And I was so busy traveling the world, doing retreats, and that's all great. But spirit needed my attention. And it's like, no, I don't just need you for a morning or a half-hour session or maybe a weekend. I need to talk for a while. Mm-hmm. And so for me, rupturing my Achilles tendon was the most delicious, amazing experience because I didn't work for 3 months. I was like a baby. I was literally, because I was in a cast for, almost, 4 weeks in a boot. People were cooking for me. People were staying over. Like one of my besties' moms had to bathe me for the first time. Like, talk about vulnerable. So to me, as a human that was a lesson in how to receive. Because what I heard in my meditation is where you're going, if you are not practicing this skill of receiving, it's not going to work. So what a better way that I literally couldn't even carry a glass of water. I was in crutches and I had to let people in and I had to learn to receive. So that was my lesson. But for other people, if the soul's only purpose is to evolve and fulfill its soul purpose. So if you're off track, getting too busy doing this, and it might look great on the outside, you're making money and there's accolades and you're getting praise, but that's not aligned with your soul's evolution, it'll stop you to recalibrate you, if you will. And so people that do want to stop, that's like, hooray, you've saved yourself a lot of time, energy, money, tears, I don't know, relationships, right? Because there is a tuition sometimes that we have to pay to continue to get to awake and to really evolve. And if the prayer is truly to know thyself and to really be here, I want to be someone that I don't want to be left with any purpose when I die. So hence why I take off like a racehorse a lot of times. But that my human is teaching me that when I take off like a racehorse, right? That's another thing I wanted to mention too, is you've got to be embodied. We are so obsessed with going to the next level and the fifth dimension and the spiritual awakening. But if you're ungrounded and disembodied and you don't know how to live in your vessel, then you can't go to the next level, because being disassociated from your body, that's trauma response. And the universe sees that as it's unsafe to give you more. So we are responsible to give the universe the signals as well. So back to knowing thyself. And a second way to listen to the inner guidance and the voice is to get embodied. You may hear the voice better after you go for a 20-minute run, because now you're back in your body and out of your head, and all the ideas start, oh my God, this is what I want to do for my next book, or this is what I'm going to do with my daughter's new nursery room, or this is what, just starts to flow. Mm-hmm. So if that's you, we're so obsessed with this growth. But if we are accustomed to disassociating from our bodies, which was me from cancer, then we got to learn how to come back into our bodies. Mm-hmm. So when someone comes to me and they finally say, okay, because people do come and say, I want to slow down. I feel like I'm on a merry-go-round and I can't get off. Mm-hmm. My first thing is we do create a schedule to slow them down. And it's an addiction for a lot of people. They're like, we go into their schedule. We create what I call a golf balls. Like you put in your calendar, the golf balls, essential, your exercise, your meal times, like what you're going to stop to eat. A lot of people don't even stop to eat. Would you believe it, Dr. Doni?
I do. I hear it.
I know you do. They're like, I didn't have lunch. I didn't have breakfast. I'm like, what do you mean you didn't have lunch and breakfast? Like you got to make time to eat, but it's a habit. That's the habit they're in. And so the golf balls are 5 and you put them in your vase before. So when I traveled the world, that's what I did. The first thing I did is where's the health food store? Where's the yoga centers? You know, where I gave myself those things are all in my calendar before business gets booked. And so a lot of this is just taking control of your calendar rather than the calendar controlling you. And a lot of times I give people the assignment of taking 1 hour a week where it's their slow time. They do nothing. And you should hear how hard that is. So slowing down is also a process and it's a healing journey because there's a driver behind busyness. It's a trauma response to be so busy and overdoing. And it's a conditioning that we thought we needed to do this much to feel worthy or be okay and be valued. When in the end, it's like, oh my God, you mean, I had a client say this to me and she was actually in tears. She said, you mean all this time I've done all this, yet I've been okay all along?
I love that. It's true. It's like, yeah, we're worthy because we are. We don't have to do anything in order to earn it or achieve it. And when we realize that, right, it lifts so much of that pressure that was just internal pressure that we even forgot that was the reason.
That's right. And I think, and I know you know this because this is what you do. You help so hundreds and hundreds of people and thousands with your books and your podcast and your practice. But the stress hormones, this is what I believe, and I'd like to hear what you think on this. Stress hormones, yes, there's external stuff happening. People need to move. Maybe there's divorce and there's all this massive paperwork and maybe there's all this financial debt that's happening due to, okay, I understand that stress, but that's situational. I think the stress that really is killing us is the inner stress of all the things we think we need to do, be, or have to feel worthy.
Yes, I agree. I agree. I agree. I think it's true. There's so many different kinds of stress. Even you mentioned earlier, toxins as a stress. And then we realize that actually when we look at the word toxin as something that's harmful to us, we realize that it can also be thoughts that could be harmful to us, but it can also be a disconnect from ourselves that's harmful to us. And so it's all of these different forms of stress because they all disrupt the cortisol, the adrenaline, the neurotransmitters. It creates disruptions and imbalances on a biochemical level, in addition to the mental, emotional, spiritual level. And so when everything is out of balance and disconnected, of course we don't feel good. Of course we're going to be tired, brain fog, not sleeping well, weight either gain or loss, you know what I mean? Digestive issues, these things come up, but to me, those are the signals from our body telling us something's out of balance in here. We need help with it instead of just putting a Band-Aid or a quick fix to try to eliminate the symptoms. When we can, this is why I love talking with you, Britta, is because you're really helping us in such clear language to say, hey, it's important to help the hormones and the biochemical level, but it's so important also to help us really connect with ourselves again. And to some degree, because sometimes it's hard for people to choose to change their diet or even take a supplement because they're still not connected with their own worth. Like it's right. Like it's hard to, sometimes patients say to me, like, I either I can't remember or I'm finding that I'm not taking my supplements, something as simple as that. And we know, okay, they're deficient in iron, let's say, but they're not remembering to take the iron. Yeah. Well, what are they doing instead? Maybe they're taking care of their kids. Their job needs them all day long. And so it's like, really what's the matter is they're not connected with their own self-worth to prioritize swallowing that iron, right?
I love what you're saying, because what I think the biggest disconnection is, and what we've never been taught, is how to be our own best friend, how to give ourselves the love that we want. And so when we say, like, let's say there's an illness or an injury or something happens, and life will do this, and especially now we are entering, we are in the age of Aquarius. This is the first time the planet has housed more light. So it's shining the light on all those places we've never wanted to look at without our permission, might I say. So it's not willingly. A lot of it, it's like there's someone with a big flashlight coming into your internal environment going, we haven't looked at that hurt. And then you're finding a lot of stuff's come up during the pandemic, because finally our cosmic environment is aligned to do the work that most of our ancestors weren't able to. So you also have a team, a spirit team, all your ancestors going, hooray, like you're finally no longer putting up with feeling like the unworthy woman and passing that down, or the man that is only worth this because of how much he makes or whatever. We're really bloodline shifters right now. And that's a job on its own, where we are the ones saying, no more, I'm going to choose to have a different pair of eyes. And it all starts, Dr. Doni, with a commitment. Like for those that say, well, I'm disconnected, I'm going too fast, I don't know who I am. If you get anything from today, all you have to truly do is just say that you are ready to finally get to know yourself. You're committed. Watch the universe send you the resources, the people, the things, the podcasts, the books, it'll illustrate all the ways that you can start on that journey. But it's like, if we don't do that, there is very few people that know who they are. And that's why I believe we are in trouble, like we are as a nation and on a global level. It's because when you don't know who you are, you're going to continue so you have to almost imagine, like, what if you go to a island and you don't have telephones and you don't have access to the news telling you what to do, and you don't have access to books, and your only teacher there is nature, and you're left with yourself. How many people would be comfortable in that place? Very few. People would be so uncomfortable because they're used to all these outside things defining them, giving them their value, and telling them that, they're okay. Some people, it's the Barney's card or the Saks Fifth Avenue card that's the channel of self-worth. When they don't feel like they have any, they go, they charge, and now they've gotten a little bit of self-worth for a few days, a week, until that runs out. So we have all these channels that we've set up for ourselves to give us self-worth. Maybe it's a friend that constantly gives you praise. That's a channel of self-worth. So when you take those channels away, you're left with nobody but you to finally say, I'm here. That's okay. And for some people, that's so foreign. It's like, how do I give myself the love that I've been asking the Barney's card and the friend and this and that to give to me? It's the hardest journey, but the most rewarding journey, because it leads to liberation. You're free. You're free. And when you're free, oh my God, when you're free, that's when life really starts.
That's beautiful. Thank you so much for just the way you explain things is really beautiful and so inspiring. I can see how, the people who work with you really get a lot out of it because you really help them to, like you said, train your brain and really know that by doing that, it's going to help you to go where you're wanting to go. I mean, ultimately, it's about, if you have that feeling like there's something else I am meant to do or would like to do, right? And it's sometimes in the back of our mind, like, I'd like to do that someday. And then maybe you start to hear it more, right? You're like, oh, I really want to be able to do this. Or sometimes it shows up. I'm thinking of patients where they've been living in the same home maybe for 30 years and they raise their kids and they've had the same job for many years, and they start to get this feeling like, I have only so many years left in my life. What am I going to do with it? Or maybe a parent passes away and we realize, oh my gosh, I only have so much time left in my life. Maybe it's time for me to do this thing, but it can get scary, right?
I just want to say that you've reminded me of this piece that Dale Carnegie, I don't know if you've ever read his biography, yes. Right? Where it's like he was ill and then they said, you only have this much time. And it's like, oh, okay, well, if I have this much time, it's like, I'm just going to go live my life and enjoy my life and have fun. And he ended up living like past where they said that he was going to, die. And it's this whole experience. And I see this over and over again. And all of, what's his name? Breast cancer surgeon, Bernie Siegel. His books are phenomenal. He talks about, this miraculous remission. It's like, there's no miraculous in it. It's like, you are finally taking the pressure to be somebody off. You are just saying, I love painting. I love scuba diving. I love biking. I love, Costa Rica. I hate this job. I hate where I live. So I'm going to let all this go and I'm going to go do those things. And all of a sudden you're free and your eyes look brighter and your hair's no longer falling out and your weight normalizes and cortisol levels normalize and adrenaline's down. So you're not, one eye open at night because you're, think the lion is coming, or it's like, what a concept. Enjoy your life. And that heals. Like it's real. And thank you for sharing that. It's so inspiring. So if they want to learn more about you and how to connect with everything you're doing, I know your website is your name, brittaaragon.com. Yeah.
And I'll put that below this too, so they can find it and click on it, because Britta is spelled Britta, and your last name is Aragon. But tell us more, how best to find you and what are the different ways that people can choose to work with you?
Yeah. So I'm launching a brand new website on December 1st. But really I do annual events, which I know, Dr. Doni, you're part of the one this year, but like Detox Your Life events that we do. And we have incredible conversations on how to shift, how to come back into internal power, how to really reset on all levels. But I do retreats as well, retreats around the world. And I have one coming up in Florida here and one in the south of France in May. So that's another great way. One-on-one work and possibly bringing group again in 2022. In my listening session, I started to get that feels important. So yeah, I mean, and of course, Instagram is where I keep, I personally post and I keep everything, of what I'm up to, and I make announcements there.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you so much. And I'm so excited to be part of your event again. I think what the message you're sharing is so important and can be so transformative for people. And so I'm so grateful for you to have this conversation today and to share this with my listeners. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. And then the last thing I want to say is that sometimes I think you reminded me of this. People are going so fast. And so these events are like the Grand Prix, you know, like vroom, vroom, we're all going around and around. And I feel these events are like you go into the pit stop and you reset. That's what these events allow you to take a breath, to slow down, to take inventory, to reevaluate. It is so healthy to do that, whether you give yourself the gift to do that one day a week, like 1 hour and on a Sunday, or you go quarterly on retreats on your own and get a sitter and you go for 2 days, or it doesn't matter, but reviewing, inventory, all of that's so important.
Oh, I love that message. And I can relate to it myself too. I mean, for many years, I would just go. Oh, this is my cat's tail in front of us. But I would go for I would go every day, and I would get migraines. And I realized at some point that the migraines were the way my body was saying to me, you need to take a break and do nothing. And so I love how you said that too. Like, so I started realizing I need to plan time to do nothing so that I don't have to get a migraine in order to create that. And it really shifted. Then the migraine stopped happening when I started purposely making my schedule so that I could just have time to just be whatever that was, have nothing that I had to do at a certain time. And like you said, sometimes we need to disconnect from our phone, our computer, even the other people in our life, just to get enough chance to just finally be with ourselves and listen to ourselves. And so I really think that's a powerful message, and to encourage people, because sometimes we keep waiting for a vacation, right? We're like, okay, I'm going to finally take a vacation. But then sometimes on vacation, you're so busy, you don't even actually get to just do nothing. So
you need a vacation from your vacation.
Exactly. We should think of it that way. Yeah. Plan the vacation from your vacation, like how to just actually, and we don't have any training on that, how to just plan nothing time. And so even if anyone listening just starts with that, even for 5 minutes, right?
Yes.
Like just do 5 minutes of nothing and see what happens.
That's right. It's baby steps, and the baby steps are quantum leaps because they're informing. Remember, it's our role to inform the universe what we're ready for and what we're not. And so it's that 5 minutes is a signal of change, and change happens slowly and steadily. So it's about progression and not perfection. So, but you got to start somewhere.
Love it. Oh, thank you so much, Britta. And I look forward to staying in touch with you. And I hope you have a good rest of the day.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to How Humans Heal. If you liked this episode, leave a rating and a review. And for more resources, visit drdoni.com.